introduce our headliner, Ms. Michael Ann Conley.
Anxiety, wound up, worried, concerned. That was me 3 hours ago. I just thought I would confess. My client walked into my office and she was bleeding, which was very unusual. She says, I can't believe I just learned. My mind is a dangerous neighborhood.
Wow.
I can't go in there alone. And she laughed, and I laughed with her. Because what we knew is that she was making changes in her life that allowed her to make a shift in how she managed the dangerous neighborhood. Is there anybody here who recognizes in yourself or someone you know that self-defeating pattern, putting yourself down and going, I can't believe I did that again. And, you know, just those, they may be subtle, they may be worse than subtle. Someone I'm looking at now calls herself dumb and stupid. Out loud. That's the dangerous neighborhood that my client was talking about. The work that I do, and that I've been doing for 32 years, gosh, that's a sentence in itself. I'm way too young to be doing this for 32 years. When I got started, I didn't know what was up. Anybody else recognize that in your life? You don't know what you don't know until you know, right? So how was I to know that there was a real reason that I was sent by a tap on the shoulder into alcohol and drug treatment as a counselor? I was a journalist before that. What? What? But the universe was conspiring on my behalf, as we've heard here today. I had the chance to learn from the women that I've worked with. And I do work with men, but I really power up. So much more. I've had a chance to learn from them. Because when I first walked into my first position as an intern in the Women's Recovery Program, I didn't know which end was up. And I didn't fit in anywhere. So I have something in common with Marlene as well. I didn't grow up in an alcoholic home. I wasn't an alcoholic myself. I didn't marry an alcoholic or an addict, and I didn't have kids who were out of control over alcohol and drugs. What was all that about? Well, it turned out that because I was there, I had something to bring, because there was this groupthink. Does everyone know what that word means? Groupthink? Where you get into, you're in the circle with the same people and you're talking to each other. Kind of like drunk voters. Hillary voters. And you don't hear any alternative points of view. And so I would walk around and say, well, you say that this is what an alcoholic family is like, but my family's like that. And they would say, oh, there's probably an alcoholic in there somewhere. 3 or 4 years later, I discovered my great-grandfather was thrown out of the house by his daughters because they didn't like the way they treated their mother. Skid Row up. The truth is, in America, scratch in America, you're going to find an alcoholic or an addict in there somewhere. And yet, because I came from a different experience, I had the chance to look underneath what was assumed and find something. And so here I am, 32 years later, using my education, my degree as a holistic health educator, and my experience and my license as a marriage and family therapist. Yes, I am one of those therapists that people talk about when they went to therapy and it didn't help. I don't know what kind of therapy those people are doing, because what I do works. In working with these women, what I discovered is the dangerous neighborhood. That no matter what habit they were dealing with, alcohol, drugs, boyfriends, husbands, whatever they were chasing, there was a layer of anxiety, overwhelm, and a lot of self-blame, a lot of talking down to themselves. And in the case that I discussed with my client, I learned that the holidays could actually be treacherous. Oh. I see some nodding heads. Yeah. Most of us are familiar with John Kabat-Zinn and his book, Wherever You Go, There You Are. And that's really true. So even though my talk today is to support you in depressurizing yourself during the holidays, what I've learned in working with clients all of these years is that we have our patterns, and then times of big stress, it's tough. So there's another saying, under stress, we all rise. It's a good one. Louder. Under stress, we all regress. So no matter how highly functioning you are in your life, if you pile on a whole bunch of stuff, you're going to fall back to old routines, old habits, and sometimes you'll fall back to, like the client I was talking with the other day, I said, how do you feel right now? And the answer was 16. So there was a recognition of a younger way of being, reactivity, and building up of resentment and drinking behind that. And yet, from a holistic perspective, there's a range of these patterns. And I like to use the continuum a lot. So let's say on this side, we have those patterns that are simply annoying to you or to someone else around you. Chewing your fingernails, picking your nose, saying and ah. And then on this side, we have patterns that are seriously life-threatening. And if they could end in death, but even if they don't end in the death of your life, they could end in the death of your spirit and your soul. So when I had the opportunity to think about what I wanted to do this fall for my people, I realized, oh my goddess, the holidays are coming and they're panicking already. Give me a minute, because there's something I really want to share with you, and I don't remember what it is. Well, I definitely want to tell you what makes me so passionate about helping women get through this, whether it's holiday time or any time, because there is always a holiday happening somewhere. I know, Patricia, I lived in New Orleans and there was a festival every single month. Asian country, that's the way it is, right? So there's always a holiday happening somewhere. And for some people it's Valentine's Day that's triggering. Sometimes it's Mother's Day, Father's Day. It's usually not the Feast of the Annunciation. I was a Catholic, and that's what But the fall holidays are like a freeway. It's like boom, boom, boom. It's like Waze, you know? Anybody have Waze on their phone? You got that traffic pileup from the days of atonement that have been happening now, all the way to now. Halloween is the start. When I was a kid, that wasn't the case. Halloween, Thanksgiving, all the way to New Year's. And what I found is that many of the women that I serve get stuck in numbing themselves out and dumbing themselves down. They numb themselves out with food or cigarettes. Still happening. Not as much as when I was a kid, but still happening. They numb themselves out with television. Can you imagine that? Any addiction, the American way of addiction is let's get hooked on something, anything, whatever it is that can help me not feel what I'm feeling. And then dumbing themselves down, which goes to the I'm so stupid. Why did I do that? There's something wrong with me. Or what did I do wrong? And it's always about me. And I'm on the downside of that me. We know the other side, where it's always about me and there's a problem with you. But this is the opposite. So, what I want to share with you today are a couple of tips that will apply all year round. Isn't that great?
Yes.
And they're going to be particularly useful as you come up to the holiday season. All right? So does anybody want to know what the number one secret for getting to the holidays without regret and worry and guilt?
Yes.
It's so simple, it's complex, and elegant at the same time. Self-contact. Grow self-contact. Now, what is self-contact? Exactly. You might be thinking of awareness. The word consciousness might come up. Being present is a phrase that people often use when they talk about self-contact. They think about that. And that would be kind of in the direction, but not fully and deeply. Self-contact is about more than just thinking. I don't have enough time today to talk about how we got into this monkey mind business that's an epidemic and how that evolved, except to say that I believe it's a part of the evolutionary process of the human thing, and that we are moving through it, but we're not there yet. So that's why I encourage the folks that I work with, and I encourage you to let your body lead so that your mind doesn't have to. Self-contact involves your entire organism, all of you. And it's not easy to talk about, so I'd love to support you in a little example. Would you be interested?
Yes.
Okay. So the first thing would be, don't change anything right now. You might notice, somebody says, we're going to do a little exercise, and everybody settles in their seats and they get themselves all ready. Be the good little student, and I'm going to do it the right way. Self-contact involves being in touch with who you are in the moment. Right? So don't change anything. But as you're sitting here, notice what's moving in you. Just sit here quietly and notice what's moving. If you want to close your eyes, that's fine. There's no right way, there's no wrong way, there's only your way. Notice what's moving. And I'll give you some examples of what things that people have said to me. A lot of times when we do this, we notice our breath. And there's a lot of exercises out there about the breath that move you in a direction of doing the breath in a particular way. That's not this exercise. So if you notice the movement of your breath, just notice what's moving. Can you feel the rising and the falling of your chest? Or maybe your belly? Can you feel the air moving in and out of your nose or your mouth? Just notice. There's no right way, no wrong way. There's only your way. But you know what? The breath doesn't just happen in the front of us. Does anybody know that? So as you're sitting here noticing your breath, leaning against the back of your chair, if you are, just notice the movement in your back right now. It could be very subtle. The lungs are inside a barrel, and that barrel moves in all ways. It doesn't just move forward. And a lot of exercises out there about the breath focus on the activity of breathing and not on the vessel that's doing it. That is self-contact. Now you can take a deep breath and wiggle your fingers and your toes. The neat thing about this exercise is that you can do it anywhere. In fact, one of my teachers would call this playing with yourself in public. I like that too. Now, the second tip goes back to my client in the beginning. She did succeed that particular holiday season and subsequently in dealing with an enraged father and a complaining mother and all of that stuff that can happen even if you see people only once a year and you come home and go, I am never going to go back there again. There you are. But she did it differently because she recognized that she'd been living in that dangerous thing and that she couldn't go there alone. So she utilized support from me. She joined my support group. And she began to share with others so that she wasn't alone. And we laughed a lot and planned and prepared every day for how are you going to handle just one small change this year for the holidays. And then after the holidays, we started planning for the next year. And the whole process unfolded in just an absolutely incredibly profound way. So that's the second tip. Don't go in there alone. And on that note, I would love to invite you to consider not going into the holiday season this year on your own. I have a little flyer here. I have created a program called the Holiday Habit Makeover. And it's not about making yourself over on the outside. It's about making yourself over on the inside. A lot of times these patterns we feel embarrassed and ashamed about. We don't necessarily talk about them. So I like to have private conversations, just you and me. So if you're interested in having a holiday, have a makeover session, I have some forms up there, I also have a sign-up sheet up here. I would love to support you in getting through your holidays without anxiety, worry, guilt, and regret.
Yes, thank you very much, Michael Ann. As a token of our appreciation.
Well, my drug of choice is chocolate. Actually, no, my drug of choice is ice cream. Chocolate ice cream. So chocolate is a second, and I'm happy to share.
You're welcome. Now what we'll do is have a question and answer period. So if anyone has any questions of Michael Ann, go ahead and raise your hand or speak out. Philip.
Well, comment, sort of, not really question.
Yeah.
Bar none, this was the best close I've heard in this group since I've been here. It wasn't glitzy, it wasn't said, didn't sound like an infomercial. You spoke to us from your heart and you spelled out the benefits. You spelled out the fact that you wanted to have the conversation and then what the results of the conversation were. And I think that's a good example for the rest of the group as to how you want to make your close so it doesn't sound like a pitch.
Thank you. I wish I had remembered to push the button to record my speech. Ta-da! It's on video. Oh, it's on video. Oh, great. Blessings to you, Ken. Thank you, Bill.
Do you work online with people as well as in person?
I do. I find that it helps I do a lot of phone work. I have worked on Zoom with folks. I have a 90-day program that is a remote program except for those people who are local who can and do want to come and see me in person.
So you work individual sessions, like ongoing as a therapist?
Yes.
Do you have programs?
I call myself a therapeutic coach because in terms of the legal system, working online as a therapist is not always something that's possible unless the client lives in California.
Okay.
So there's some tricky things that I have to follow, and there's a line there about between therapy and coaching. Interesting universal life force thing is that I never would have made it as a typical therapist. But alcohol and drug treatment is all about coaching. So I've always been a coaching style therapist. So it's a very different way of working. So it's a little bit easier segue for me, but it is something that I have to watch the legal system.
Okay, because I have a lot of clients who actually need therapeutic help, and sometimes they have addictions, and I'd like to refer them to.
Well, let's have a conversation.
Yeah,
I love that. We could be great referral partners.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Does anyone else have a question? I do.
Okay.
What feedback did you get from addicts and alcoholics about the fact that, well, I don't know this to be true, do you find that it's necessary to have been a recovering addict or alcoholic yourself to be a therapist?
Yes and no.
Okay.
It's not necessary to have had the same experience. None of us has the same experience as any other of us. What I find is that when clients ask the question, are you an alcoholic? Have you ever had this experience? there's always an agenda underneath that question. Every question, even if somebody says, what are you doing Friday night? There's something behind that, which could be innocuous, could be friendly, no big deal. But a question like, are you an alcoholic, or are you married, or do you have kids? The real question underneath that is, will you see me? Will you hold me? Will you be heart to heart with me? And so I explore that and what it is that they really need. And then I often will say, I'm going to answer that question, but not yet, and here's why. And I talk about how important it is for me to understand where their question is coming from, so that I don't make assumptions about, I don't want to make any assumptions about what they're thinking, because none of us is a mind reader. And that has tended to soften it. So even though the other part of the yes is, these women that I worked with initially really had me look strong and hard at my own alcohol use. Because how I say it is, I lived the phase and the phrase of sex, drugs, rock and roll. So my best stories will never be on television. So I was able to draw from my own experiences, feeling really lucky, really lucky. In fact, how much time, Dot, are we closing in? Okay, so another time, yeah.
Another time. Okay, well, thank you so much.
Chocolate, anyone?
Yes.
Oh, I'd like to turn, I sit down like I'd like to turn the